Hi, good morning. Happy hump day. Happy rainy, summery Wednesday, August 11th in the year 2021. I hope everyone is well. We're going to jump right into our reading today, and we're going to talk about how an author develops the meaning of a term throughout the course of a text. So, what we're going to be looking at today is a seminal text, which means one that has been deemed as important to the history of the United States. This was written by James Madison, who later became a president, and he is really considered to be the author of the Constitution. So we're going to look at his paper called the Federalist Paper number 10. We're going to, let me just show you a little quick picture of him. We're going to look at Federalist Paper number 10, as I said, which will, there he is. Come on, James. There we go. Oh, that's a tiny picture. Can I do something with that? Sorry about that, y'all. Let's see if we can blow him up a little bit. Give me a real quick second. Pardon for a second. Alrighty. Take your time, slow thing. All right. And forgive me, we are having some real system issues today. I hope you can still hear me. We're having some real problems the past 2 days with the system. So yeah, he's a dead white dude. Considered an important person, a crafter of the Constitution of the United States, which he wanted to illuminate rights and freedoms of Americans. However, as you know, those were not granted to everyone. So, but we must talk about it as his Federalist Papers as a seminal or a most important text. So let's get started by getting some background on Federalist Paper number 10. So it's the advantage of the Union or the country. And he wanted to say that if the country was strong, he would break the back of what he called factions. And those were groups of people who wanted to tear the country apart. And so he defines a faction, this is our word, as a majority or a minority who were united and activated by some common impulse of passion or of interest that went against the rights of other citizens or to the interests of the country as a whole. You might call the people that gathered on the Capitol on January 6th of this year a faction. He believed we remove factions by setting up political parties where people are able to participate in the selection of leaders and the crafting of our government. So that's what he thought would be good. However, the first thing he thought was to destroy the liberty, the freedom essential for factions to work. And he said, so that would mean to take away their voice, take away their freedom of expression. But he said, no, that's not going to do it. That would be worse than anything. And then he said, no, I think what we need to do is give everyone this value, to give value to people who have the same interests, passions, and opinions. However, there were conflicting ideas because people are different. People are not going to agree. And so there he said, greatest source of factions, and I believe this is true to this day, is that we have unequal distribution of property. So, can we say poverty is one of the biggest creators of these divisions? Excuse me one moment, y'all. Um, so, those are creditors, there are debtors. There are those with property and those without. Some are interested in manufacturing, some in business, some interested in money. And this is important in a civilized country, and that people are divided by class, by different opinions. That we want to regulate these different interests to make sure that everyone has freedom. So we got to make sure that nothing grows out of control. And that the way we do this is to form a government that represents all the people. And so while faction leaders might light a flame, they're not going to be able to spread this everywhere. Well, we thought this before now, right? And you could say that MAGA was able to grow large and actually impacted our democracy, or what we believe to be our democracy. So while this was an important paper, I guess we can ask the question now is, what do we do? Where do we go from here? So to sum this up, let's make it real basic. He defined a faction or political party. He said it was most significant in that how we keep them from anyone from growing too powerful is to create more political parties. So we really can say that we're representing the interests of all Americans. Well, people now are saying we need a third party, and that the interests of the poor and of historically disadvantaged people, maybe LBGT, immigrants' rights are not represented in full by the two parties. So some people are saying now we might need a third party. So that's really the gist of that. That's what you'd have. This is what you'd have to understand on your test. What a faction is, how they develop, and how we fix them. So really what he did was take this term and build on it by each paragraph, telling you more and more what it looks like, what it can do, how it can behave, and how we fix it. So that's our lesson. Let me go back, because you know we're always going to have a worksheet. We want to cement our understanding. So that's a whole description of, that's the Federalist Papers again, if you want to read it. And here we have a worksheet. And because I would never leave you, we also have the answers. So to take a quick look at a couple. At the convention in Philadelphia, it was far from certain that the states would agree to and ratify a new constitution. As state conventions convened to decide whether or not to accept, a fierce publicity campaign was waged by both Federalists and Anti-Federalists, who I would guess the Anti-Federalists would be very, very rich people, the 1% of the time, who wanted to have more of the power. And they were also considered trouble sometimes. So the Federalists of the day had the advantage in leadership with the likes of George Washington and Ben Franklin, two of the most eminent men of their day. They also had the support of the ablest political philosophers of their time, Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay. These three men honored a pseudonym or a false name. Publius wrote a series of essays examining the meanings and virtues of the Constitution, why it was considered so important. And this collection of essays today are known as the Federalist Papers. So after reading Federalist paper number 10, answer the following questions in complete sentences. So don't just respond with one word, have a complete thought. So, what does Madison believe is the advantage of a well constructed union? He believed that was one that would keep the peace, right? That would protect the interests of all people. How, and this is something that you can answer without even having heard of these Federalist papers. How are conflicts too often decided in unstable governments? We look around the world right now. Tell me what goes on. In fact, in Afghanistan, where we're pulling out our troops, the government is collapsing. So tell me whose rights are denied when there are conflicts in unstable governments? And this third question I want you to answer is what are two ways in which Madison believes factions can be dealt with? I'm not going to answer that one for you. And then lastly, what is his argument for liberty? What is his argument for liberty? I'm going to help you with that one. It's a little tough. This is a little tough lesson, but his argument for liberty, his definition of liberty is a little bit different. And liberty means freedom, right? And freedom to do what you want to do. So one thing he said about factions, we'll just get rid of them, right? Period. We're not going to allow it. Now, go back to that question, and we're going to wrap this up. Ooh, sorry about that. I'm in the wrong one, y'all. And then we're going to wrap up our question. So through this whole thing, you're going to page 2. There's the papers. 3, 4. Our questions are on page 5. So question 2, question 3, and question 4. Those are the ones I want you to answer. And guess what? You have help. And as always, please let me know when you feel like something is over your head. As I said, this is a very technically based lesson, but what we want to do is look at how the author builds and builds and builds upon his definition to give you understanding. So please, as always, let me know if this was a lot, and I expect that it will be, but I believe you're up to the challenge. So everyone take care. I will see you tomorrow for Writing and Science. That's it. Enjoy your day.